Who the fuck are these people? Eternals, directed by Chloé Zhao, is a story about eternal beings that watch over the earth and destroy creatures that are trying to interfere with this life, while also trying to stay away from the humans and let them create life of their own. As time passes, they have vanquished these beasts, but many, 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 many years later, they soon rise once again, and they discover deep and dark secrets about what the actual plans for planet Earth are. I do that bit at the beginning because, much like Shang-Chi, I really didn't have too many high hopes for this movie, and then Shang-Chi came out and kind of blew me away, and so my meter for this movie, kind of being more anticipated, ticked up slightly, but not really that much, because really when I watched the trailer and I kind of heard about some of it, I was like, okay, maybe this might work, who knows? And eventually, hearing how long the runtime is and then looking at the trailers and all this other stuff, I was kind of like, oh, it might be good. And also, I think it could be kind of bad. And I would say it meets right in the middle. One thing's for certain is that this movie is 2.5 hours long. And it's an unknown property, and not many really casual people know of the Eternals. I'm sure that there are hardcore comic fans that know about the Eternals and know all the lore and just, want to get up on their soapbox and just kind of go, oh, you don't understand. You didn't read the comics. You're not a Marvel fan. Huh? And then I just have to say to you, go fuck yourselves, because I don't have a lot of time to read all that kind of shit, okay? I got other things to do in my life sometimes, okay? But nevertheless, obviously, if you're hyped for this movie because you've read the comics and you think this is a great adaptation of the story and what you've read and what you've seen, by all means, go for it, and let me know, honestly, too, because I know nothing about this kind of stuff. I don't really read comics. I've never really read a comic before, and I know knowledge here and there of things, but, it's, bits and pieces. I never really have a continuous, I buy comics and I read storylines of different stuff like that. It's just never been me. And when this movie, I'm watching it and I'm kind of trying to be okay, let me take it for what it's worth and let me just watch and kind of digest everything as it's going. And while this movie has a lot of interesting ideas that I think it could have done way better, there are some ideas that have landed in this movie for sure. For starters, the idea that the Eternals have been around since 7,000 or 5,000 BC and have just been living among the humans and watching the evolution of this planet and not really trying to intervene, because their duty of this planet is to be, we're going to kill these things that are trying to invade this planet, we're going to protect these people, but we're not going to get away with their evolution. If there's war, we can't get involved into war. We can't advance their technology as quickly as we may want it to. There's a really cool scene where the one guy is fixing something with his mind, and it's kind of shown, and it looks like a steam pressure thing that he wants to show the society. But then Ajax, who is played by Salma Hayek, comes in and is just it's a cool idea, but you gotta let these people figure that out for themselves. That's a little too much information for them right now, and that's just gonna stifle the growth of this planet. I thought those ideas, and I thought that kind of stuff that they introduced in this movie, I thought that worked really well. And then I thought some other ideas for some other characters or big storylines, even sub-storylines, just really didn't work for me at times. Angelina Jolie plays a character named Thena, and the most I'll say about her is that she has a mind-bending kind of thing happen to her in the movie. And while it is a interesting idea at first, it definitely is not handled very well at the very end of the movie. And that, I feel starts a little bit of the spiral and some of the stuff that I didn't like. There was also moments about villains and how they had pretty much one continuous villain throughout the entire movie, and then suddenly they have to shift focus and introduce another villain. And it completely takes the shine away from the other thing, and it completely takes away from all the stakes that were being brought up throughout this movie. One of the biggest things about this movie with that sort of stuff in its story is that at moments I felt like it wanted to be epic. It wanted to feel like this big spectacle, like shit was happening, and that it is a very important thing to happen in this timeline. Unfortunately, I know what they wanted to go for, and I know that how they want you to feel about that. I just never personally felt that way. Really, in this movie, with the biggest issue I find with the characters at moments is the fact that there are just too many of these characters, honestly. There's a character, Kumail Nanjiani, plays Kingo, and he is kind of useless in this movie, and he's not really there towards the end of the movie. And then also McHugh, who plays Sprite in this movie. While I find that there is some interesting character moments in this movie with her, because she is a goddess kind of embodied in the body of a child, basically, or not a child, but more of like a young teenage person, you know. That sort of had some cool ideas with it, but then they just never really grasped to it, and I found that kind of unfortunate. And also, Lauren Ridloff, while she's in the movie because she has this power of being fast, she's also very much not used in this movie as much. And really, when it comes down to it, there's about only 3 or 4 characters really in that main group that really matter in the story. Another slight disappointment for me in this is that I feel like Ajax is not in this movie too much. I really wanted to see a little bit more from Salma Hayek in this movie, but unfortunately we didn't get that. But I will say one of the actual more positives of this is I think some of these other characters and relations are really good. Gemma Chan as Cersei and Richard Madden as Icarus, they have kind of a love history from before, and it's kind of played off of throughout the entire movie. I thought that stuff kind of worked at times. There were some parts that I was kind of iffy about it, but generally speaking, I thought that stuff kind of worked. Gilgamesh is also a pretty cool character in this movie. He kind of like forms like, you know, solid steel hands of some sort. Like, he's able to get like really strong and like hit things really hard. I thought he was kind of funny in this movie, and he has a relationship kind of with Angelina Jolie's character in this movie that I found to have really worked at times. Unfortunately, I would have liked to see more of it, but from what it's worth on the screen, I thought that stuff was okay. Really, my favorite character out of all of this is the character played by Brian Tyree Henry, who is the mechanic kind of guy in this movie. There's a great scene, and it's kind of shown in the trailer, so it's really not that much of a spoiler, but they visit the scene of Hiroshima, and he's like crying because he's like, why did I even show these people this technology? It hurts people. It is just absolutely the wrong thing I should have done. And him and Ajax kind of have a little moment together where they're just like grieving over the huge amount of loss that they had during this moment. And that stuff was really powerful, and I really did enjoy that kind of stuff. And kind of taking the characters and plopping them back into the storyline as we kind of move along with this is the timeline is just really weird in this with me, because I don't see how the Eternals really matter in the timeline at all. Like, if the Eternals are here specifically to make sure that they can't get in the fight with Marvel, you know, they can't go and be like, hey, Iron Man, I'm on your 6, you know, and covering you. Like, because they're immortal, they can technically take down all the threats. And while that's explained, I just feel like, then why are we watching them? Like, if they're kind of like, you know, beings that are technically immortal but could still be killed by other, you know, godlike creatures, then why are they here? What's the point of the story right now? Along with that, with the timeline stuff, is that they have 2 post-credit scenes in this movie, and honestly, I wasn't very intrigued by either one of them. The first one has a little bit more to it, but the second one for sure really didn't do it for me. And that's the bigger issue with this whole timeline stuff, is that the post-credit scenes are usually little Easter eggs leading to the next movie, right? Or the next adventure with these characters, right? Slight spoilers for Shang-Chi if you haven't seen it yet, and I still recommend that movie. It's coming to Disney Plus very soon. But here's a little quick spoiler. You might want to jump ahead a little bit. At the end of Shang-Chi with the 2 post-credit scenes is you get, you know, Shang-Chi and the friend visiting Wong, talking about the rings that they, you know, use during the fight, and then they get on a video call with Bruce Banner and, you know, Brie Larson's character as Captain Marvel, and they kind of like basically know each other now and are part of the universe now. And then his sister then ends up running the Legend of the Ten Rings kind of clan. That progresses the story more, right? That, and it's like, you know, it just, I'm excited to see what they do next, because now I know, oh, well, he knows them, and she's doing this, and there's just fluidity to the story. There's, chapters to the next story. It's another installment that we can get excited about. With Eternals, I never felt that with this. And to kind of cap it off a little bit is the direction for this movie is not horrible, but it's not really that great either. I felt like there was really no unique style to this movie at all. I couldn't watch this movie and be like, oh, that's, I usually when I watch these movies and I see something kind of cool, like some unique shots or some awesome, long takes or just how a movie looks, it just, there's a certain feeling I get, from directors that do a good job, I can praise Shang-Chi all day about its choreography. I can praise Christopher Nolan's movies on how excellent they look and how excellent the story is. You know what I mean? But with this movie, I don't know, it just felt kind of vanilla, This didn't feel like unique. It felt kind of conveyor beltish. And unfortunately, I feel like this is one of the more blander Marvel movies that we've seen. And again, with it being very bland, is also a detriment to these characters because, again, this is a property not many people know. And you need to kind of shoot some life into it. You know what I mean? You need to, like, Guardians of the Galaxy is a great example of this. Is that not many people knew who Guardians of the Galaxy were. And James Gunn kind of changed how they were and made it a way for the common fan and the casual fan to kind of be like, I need more of that. Like, that was just fun, upbeat, and relatable stuff. With Eternals, I think the biggest problem with it is because they're godlike figures, how can you really make that relatable? That's the biggest issue that they had with Thor for a very long time until they figured that out. So I have no doubts in my mind that they might be able to figure this out, but for this movie, for sure, I don't think it came across very well. And one final note before we get to the grade is the fact that the Marvel humor was never really something that I noticed before, and I've always heard people talking about it, and I just kind of go, well, they're fun action movies here and there, and, you kind of take with what you get. With this movie, you really felt the Marvel humor here. You really felt the moments where it was like, do we really need a joke there? Do we really need to do this there? Because it's kind of undermining the situation that's happening right now, whether it's sad or whether it's, action-packed, or there were just moments in the movie that I really felt the Marvel humor really bogged down the moment that it was trying to create. I'm going to give Eternals 3 stars. Thank you guys so much for watching. Look forward to more reviews very soon. You can also find me on different podcast platforms talking about wrestling from time to time. Links will be down in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will talk to y'all next time. And we done.